Thank you for everybody for waiting. Today's talk is about defending your app with Angular route guards, and it's basically going to just be a pretty brief discussion on how you can use the route guards in your Angular application to be able to pass data around your routes and to be able to prevent your user from leaving the route and also entering into routes that they're not supposed to. So if you're familiar with a dashboard with an admin page, or maybe you have like a form and you want the user to go ahead and input some text onto the form, and then they may want to check out another page. You may want to alert them, like, hey, you may want to save these changes. This is what the route guard will basically help you be able to do. So this is basically, just taking a minute to bring in all the hot keywords that comes around, can deactivate preloading, CanLoad. What does this all mean? Why do we all use it? You can find me at some of these little gossip links here, Twitter, and GitHub. And about me, I've been working with front-end development for about 5 years. Full stack, back in the day, back in the day, most of the time you had the whole stack, the LAMP stack, or you probably, had you're only the only person on the team that basically worked with that. Before now, we start moving towards more module development. I'm speaking Japanese for over a decade, so forgive me about the Japanese you may see around there. To maintain the level I have, I have there's like 3 or 4 levels, like the second level, and every year I try practice on to make sure I can have my skill level can pass. So in order for me to do that, I gotta make sure everything's in Japanese at all times. It's just because I worked a lot for it. It's going away. Anyway, I love learning about new technologies, and Angular always comes out with something new for me to learn and to implement. And the latest book, basically, is Algorithms Live By Tom Griffith and Brian Christian. I implore you to look at that book and take a bit, Audible or a regular hardcover. So what are route guards? Why do we need them? So Angular route guards basically sets the restriction on your route so you can make sure your users only have access to routes that you want them to be. So like I said before, thinking about your routes, think about your application. You might have a few views that are only set up for an admin or super admin, and you might have a user that is not logged in yet. You may want to make sure that user is not gets access to that page. It also allows you to notify the user before they leave the route prematurely. That's what I was talking about before. You might want to set up an alert. Angular route guards allows you to set up your client application and your navigations for any particular scenario. And I like that that the route guards on AngularIO always take a chance to go look at that first. Really lays out the groundwork for understanding and getting like a simple talk together. You can always relay back with that reference. Another one is you may want to request a post to the server once a user completes an action, and you can also prevent users from getting access to the components by preventing the page to be loaded. So this is basically my little Jeff here. We all know Gandalf the Grey. You shall not pass. But suppose you're starting off with Gandalf. You're starting off with your route guards, but you're not really at Gandalf level yet. So you have your router guards, Gandalf, but the user's trying to come through, and then so all of a sudden users all come through, and it's just it's a big mess. So you gotta make sure you pay attention to the reference to the guides before you can basically mess with your route guards. So. Okay, so take a minute to look at the interface types. So we have the can activate child, can activate, can load, resolve, and can deactivate. So these are all these interfaces you can basically see on the AngularIO website. That gives you basically an opportunity to see that you can implement them in your application. So for instance, we're going to work with CanActivate. You basically are not allowing your user to enter into a route unless some sort of criteria has been made, whether it's basically being coded onto your client, maybe you're waiting for a response from an API, from an external API. The same thing goes with CanActivate Child, which basically has very similar interface as CanActivate Child. Actually, you can actually implement both of them and use them at the same time within a single service, because of the fact that the only thing that the CanActivate Child does is that it waits for the child elements that you're basically looking to interact with. So I have a demo where I'm gonna try to explain that. And the can deactivate route is basically what I said before. You may want to have your your user do something. You know, maybe you want to save some data, or maybe you might want the user to be alerted that they're leaving the route. This particular interface allows you to get that done. The next is resolve. Now, resolve is not really like a guard, but it allows you to do some functionality to prefetching like data. So before you actually like think about like before you, I don't know. I have, when I'm looking at it, I have like there's a resolving some sort of like resource of some sort. Then finally, you have the CanLoad. Now, the CanLoad is very similar to CanActivate, except for the fact that it's involved lazy loading. So if you heard Arinda, we was talking about lazy loading. If you wanted to go ahead and, so if you wanted to go ahead and utilize the CanLoad, you basically would prevent the user from even seeing the data being downloaded. They want to be, so that's a really great opportunity for you to prevent the user from like being able to actually see the JavaScript script files that are basically being downloaded on the page. Let's move on. So how to get the steps to implementing route guards? You know, so if you're using Angular CLI, because that's one solution, you can create your own module builder to actually build it, but you can utilize the keywords ngGenerate service authentication to generate the service for Angular CLI. You add the logic to the service to manage how the service will be used in your guard, however that may be. Then you actually want to generate the guard, and you can use either one, ng, which is basically generate G for guard and the guard name, and then you add the service to the guard. So this is pretty much a way to get up and running. You can, within minutes, you'll be able to have the route guards, implementing in your application with no time flat. So now I'm going to go ahead and move on to the demo. Now, when I think about guards, you're probably looking at a user logging in. So we're going to go ahead and let me just go and show the code first. Actually, yeah. So we can go ahead and see that. All right. So first, we're going to look at the first. Yeah. Can everybody see that? Everybody see it? Expand this next? Okay. Okay, let me bring this one down. Okay, so we're going to look at our route. App routing module. Okay, so here it is. You have the app routing modules where you probably start adding some of your configuration. If you don't want to use, you can actually you can declare all of your routes configuration in the app module, or you can basically break it out and have a separate module for it where all of the configuration is running through here. You can see now, if you looking at the routes where we define the configuration, that the property, where we can show right here, is basically where you can add the functionality of the can deactivate or can activate, depending on what you're actually looking to do. Here's CanLoad, for the CanLoad guard, and you can simply see that it's actually connecting with this particular route, like add movie. So add movie is is the path that's basically changed inside the browser URL. And once that basically changes, the CanLoad will basically be taken, will kick off, and whatever is basically there for CanLoad will basically be used or not used. Let me see, let's move on real quick. All right, so let's just look at this real quick. So we have here, you have your plan here, you want to sign in, user want to sign in. You go ahead, user's able to go ahead and move to the sign-in page with no problem. And let's see, I kind of have a user list. Let's bring it up real quick. User list, yeah. So this is my hard-coded password and username. So we'll go through that, and we'll just put in user 123. And you see how we can go ahead and we can alert the user that they've been welcomed, they've been logged in, and they pass in here properly. But let's say the user this user was a naughty user, and he wanted to go ahead and he's seen that he wants to add a movie. This was basically where we can set up the CanActivate guard to prevent them to using that. We don't have to really say that's admin, but this gives you an opportunity to see that you can manipulate your application quickly to address any particular situation. And that's where I think the power from Angular comes in, because that doesn't really change. I've been using Angular 2 for like the last 2-3 years, and that's basically stayed the same. So you're not going to have to relearn that, hopefully, I don't know. But we'll see that that's basically how I like looking at it. So let's go and move on. Let's see if we can log out. Sign out. And we're going to log in as admin. What was the password? Oh yeah, admin123. Admin123. And you can see that the user logs in, and you can basically say that you can see that the value that the profile has changed to the term admin, and you can see that we're in the profile page. And there's actually something I also wanted to say is that the route guards only works within the application. If the user actually went ahead and went up here and started to touch this, they would actually be able to interact and manipulate the page. So basically this is not a good user experience, but there's ways to actually can focus on. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but just understanding on how the route guards actually work. They're not like a panacea for all. So let's sign out. And let me see now. The last one, super admin. Okay. And that was super admin 123. Super admin 123. Okay, so you can go ahead and you can see that the super admin gets logged in. This is the page. Now this page has nothing really to do with the route. So that means that if you want to go ahead, like this page, I kind of just scrape together different pages, and then componentize it into an Angular application, and then threw in route guards, and was about maybe a couple hours. So that's where it is. That's the kind of power of Angular. You really don't have to pay too much attention to the actual CSS, HTML part of the page, but just understand on what's actually happening when the user is being moved around your application. Okay, so here, this is basically where the super admin is able to log in to add movie, and basically you can see that up in the top, that add movie, you're in the add movie view, and you can do things in here based on that. Now, I wouldn't say that you would want to use Angular, the route guards exclusively. You would want to have some sort of back-end server-side authentication as well, because of the fact that it's not really safe to kind of have all of your logic just being pushed into the dev tools. So let me see now. Let me move back to the page here. Okay. So I always wanted to say, also visit the Angular IO. It's a great site for learning about Angular and as well as these other wonderful people, Ryan Jenke, Deborah Carrata, AngularNYC. These are some of the blogs I keep track of, I follow, and it helps me to, they utilize a lot of, they go very close with the actual Angular guide for the fundamentals of like Angular in general. So they don't, so basically you won't get confused. I tend to feel confused sometimes, but using these guys is great. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you, Chris. Any questions? Okay, we have one.
I was wondering, like, are there any other kind of interesting or other ways of using guards besides like authentication, or is that pretty much the main?
No, actually, it's not. Like I said before, that there was actual way that you can use the authentication to do whatever you might want to do in the background. Like sometimes you might want to preload data or preset data sort of before the user actually leaves the route. You can do that with the actual route because you actually implement the service, and the service can do relatively what you want because it's singleton. You basically pass that around your application. That's all the guards are. And one thing I liked about it was that if you're typing like a form, and the form is kind of huge, if the user clicked off the page, like hit the delete tab, they would basically lose all that data. So you can use the can deactivate guard, which would detect it when that user is about to leave the page to do whatever. Like I use the alerts because I like alerts. All right. Anybody else?
Thank you. Any other questions?